Ever wonder where your cup of morning coffee comes from? How it is processed, traded, and then sold? And lastly, who gets the most profit in the value chain? This and more will be explored in the following video. Welcome to the origin of the bean.
So let's start with the basics. There are two types of plants, Arabica and Robusta coffee. Arabica beans are grown on high altitude and is known for its taste, aroma, and acidity, all characteristics that define coffee quality. Thus, Arabica coffee is high quality and sold for much more than Robusta coffee. Robusta is lower quality beans but generally has higher caffeine levels. It can be grown on lower altitude and grows in bulk compared to the sparse beans of Arabica plants. Due to the climate and landscape of many Central American countries, Guatemala and its neighbors harvest 99% Arabica coffee and only 1% Robusta.
So typically when you drink a cup of very rich coffee, it's most likely made from Arabica beans. The Arabica beans are divided into 4 different classifications of altitude. Strictly hard beans, semi-hard beans, prime, and extra prime. The higher the altitude of the plant, the better the bean will taste. Prime and extra prime are grown at the lowest altitude, between 2,500 feet and 3,500 feet, above water level. Then there's semi-hard and hard beans, which are grown between 3,500 feet to 4,500 feet. Strictly hard beans are the last classification and are considered to be gourmet beans. There are other factors, such as weather and soil, which can also have a huge effect on the quality of the bean.
So personally, it wasn't until I actually held the coffee plant in my hand that I realized how intricate the process was. It starts with a farmer planting the seed. The seed sits in the ground for 3 years before it produces its first flower, after which it grows into a green cherry that is ripened when it turns red, and then it's picked and processed. The ripened fruit is sold at only 20 cents per pound. This is after 4 years of hard work from the farmers. If the farmer doesn't have technology to process it further, that is the price that they will sell it to cooperatives or other intermediaries.
What comes after depends on the size of the farm. If the farm is a medium to large-scale farm, it will process the beans using a wet mill and other machineries. Otherwise, the farmer would be processing the beans manually with a depulping bicycle. The advantage of using machineries to process is that it ensures consistency in the beans, and not to mention, it processes much greater volume and brings economy of scale. The physical processing starts with depulping the fruit, which is taking of the waxy shell of the cherry. After it's depulped and dried, it can be sold at $1.20 per pound. Compared to the 4 years growing the plant, the depulping process takes 2 weeks tops.
The depulped bean, after it's dried, is called parchment, and at that state it is ready to be deshelled and then sorted by its weight, size, color, and shape. This process takes about 2 days if it's done manually, and brings the price of the coffee bean to $3.50 per pound once it's done. When the bean is green, it is still unrecognizable by the consumer, and it can be stored and shipped for long periods of time. The last step is roasting, which takes about 20 minutes tops, but this doubles the price of the finished product to be about $6 per pound. The bean goes through a series of more intermediaries, such as government agencies, exporters, dealers, and brokers during the shipping process, before it finally reaches the roaster, which is typically at the country of sales. Beans are typically shipped during its green state because after it's roasted, it's stamped with an expiry date of 3 months.
The beans production process is now hidden beneath a pretty package, while the price of the bean is further inflated through marketing and packaging. Consumers typically pay about $25 per pound of good quality Arabica coffee. This goes to show how much margin each step of the supply chain makes. For the farmer, it's all about the amount of technology they have. The more supply chain they can take on, the more profit they can make for themselves. Unfortunately, it's not the case for most small-scale farmers, which is why there's many intermediaries that will make most of the profit. Most of the money is made later on the supply chain, especially between the green state and the roasted state. What consumers are aware of, the brands that we know and love, are all at the work of the roasters. Starbucks, Nestle, Kicking Horse, Maxwell, these large-scale roasters, and some small local roasters built their success on the ability to turn a $3.50 pound of bean into a $20 bag of coffee through the technology they have and their branding.